You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Champions League podcast. It's match day 8. It's the end of the league phase. A very exciting night in store of European action, we hope. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and joined as ever by Mark O'Hare and Adrian Clarke. And Mark, it's safe to say you're a Champions League new format skeptic. I hope I'm not putting words in your own mouth. And you have said you are going to reserve judgment until the night of destiny. It's 2 nights away, Wednesday night. What is your plan for 8 p.m. on Wednesday?
Just the usual plan, really, which would be to have 2 games on my main screens, and then probably the goal show on a third. There's only one EFL game, I think, on Wednesday night, so there's not a huge amount of clash. It's just all focus on the Champions League, and see how it plays out, because I see Jamie Carragher was saying it's going to be sensational. I'm not completely convinced it will be. I think it has a potential to be anticlimactic, but we'll have to wait and see, as I've said from the start, really, on this new format, because I wasn't in favour of it. I don't believe the format was required. Reform of European football was, but the format of the Champions League I thought worked perfectly previously. So now we're playing 234 games to see 24 of 36 teams qualify. I was prepared to give it a go. I'm still prepared to give it a go, but there's a lot of pressure now on Wednesday night for me to see this as a resounding success, because I think we've had more thrashings than normal in a normal Champions League group stage. We've had more big teams against more sort of big teams, but I think the majority of those have been quite uninspiring. Obviously, match day 7, we saw a couple of really fantastic matches, but also just the lack of jeopardy for big clubs. People saying it's a bit of a cakewalk in the previous regime, but Man City have had a absolutely horrendous campaign, and they might still qualify, and they probably will still qualify with 10 or 11 points from 8 games. PSG too, like they've been right on the line, but they're probably going to qualify and squeak through, because it's almost too easy for the big clubs not to. I could go on and on with various other sort of issues with the competition, but I've said from the start I'll wait and judge and see what it's like at the end. And at the moment I've been sort of nonplussed by it, but if Wednesday turns out to be a real feast, then I'm sure I'll be bought in.
Okay, yeah, and it's that, Adrian. Looking at the Europa League table, right? There's more jeopardy in that top 24, and maybe it's the way the league's panned out this year versus maybe some of what Mark said, that there's maybe 7, 8, 9 teams in that Champions League that just aren't strong enough to be competing for that top 24. So what you're left with is it's the race to the top 8, really. I know we're going to speak about Manchester City. It is that race to the top 8, and there are so many teams involved, and I think it is very, very important. But obviously, it's not completely detrimental, as you'll still be in the competition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's a disappointing sort of gap at the bottom, isn't there, where really we know not too many teams can drop out of Europe really on the final night. So that, I think, is a little bit disappointing. Yeah, it's like whether you care enough about whether the top 8 is important will probably determine how much you enjoy the final day, because there is a lot of jeopardy on that. But who's bothered outside of the fans of those sides, I guess, is probably the question. What I will say in defence of the competition, and I can't really argue with Mark's points, but what I will say is that it's thrown up more big-time fixtures. And now you could argue whether those fixtures have lived up to the hype or not, and I get that. But personally, someone that works on the games, I've really enjoyed having some bigger teams for Arsenal to face. Inter Milan away, Atalanta, and PSG at home, and various other tricky games, Sporting as well. You just wouldn't have got in a 4-team group. And I've also absolutely loved having 7 different opponents. I think it's boring playing Dinamo Zagreb home and away, and then also Brest home and away. And then maybe you might have a Sporting Lisbon level side as well that you play home and away. And you don't get that glamour. You don't get any glamour games. So for me, I like it. I thought I would hate it, and actually I quite like it. But in terms of jeopardy for the neutrals,
I would agree in terms of the variety. I think that's actually a really good element to it. But on the race to the top 8, and I don't want to sort of piss on the parade too much, but 2 teams are already in the top 8. 2 teams are almost guaranteed top 8, regardless of what happens, which is Arsenal and Inter. And I think 3 of the other 4 are strong favourites to win what should be gimme games on Wednesday night as well. So it's really only, I think, Atalanta in the top 8 who have got sort of major issue potentially of holding on to the top 8. So is there really going to be a race to the top 8 on Wednesday night? That's where my sort of anticlimactic angle comes from. And but there's a lot of money involved. Teams win, 250,000 or so for every game. Every game they win, or every position they improve on the league ladder, they get a lot of money for winning a game anyhow. So but I just think from a player's perspective, people talk about the money involved and, trying to finish in the top 8 or the top 24, whatever. If you're playing on Wednesday night and you're in that sort of middle pack, you've got not a Scooby-Doo what's going on elsewhere. So like the pundits and the experts back in the studio are going to have a sort of struggle trying to work out who needs to do what. So like, how are the players going to understand it on the pitch? You just got to go out and try and win the game. So hopefully that will kind of play into being a great night of football. But I'm still slightly unconvinced.
Just one other quick thing. I think I would see it as more of a top 6 as well. In terms of I'm looking at it from an Arsenal point of view, and Arsenal would not want, if they can't get top 2, which I don't think they will, then you don't really want to play any of the top 2 until the semi-finals at the latest. And really, it doesn't matter if you finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th. You won't meet a team. You won't meet Liverpool or Barcelona until the semi-finals, providing they're still in it. And I do think that potentially matters. So there'll be an element of it. You don't want to finish outside the top 6 if you're in that mix as well. But it depends what you're into, really. But I also quite like the way it's sort of bracketed up already, and that there'll be a draw for each version of who you could face. I quite like that as well. It's just all fresh.
Yeah, top 24 from 36, I guess, ultimately is probably too many teams. But look, going to the money point, Mark, and it's terrible having too many games, particularly with players playing a lot of games. We're seeing a lot of injuries, but bringing it all the way to the Conference League, Shamrock Rovers have managed to outperform there and earning a serious amount of money off the back of these new formats. But it is ultimately for more money. That is the incentive for UEFA, so not necessarily a better format.
Going to ruin the Irish League, though. Is that going to make a bigger gap?
Yeah, well, that's true. So it's like ruining the competitiveness of the domestic league here, Adrian. We won't go down that road, believe it or not. But the League of Ireland is making a comeback domestically. We've actually got our first ever TV deal, believe it or not, in the league domestically. So hopefully that filters through in other areas of Europe. But yeah, go back to Champions League. Pros and cons, and judgment reserves very much until Wednesday at 8 p.m. If you're new to the Champions League podcast, or indeed any of our podcasts, check out your podcast feeds for all the podcasts we'll be delivering you over the next few weeks. A busy time of year. Insights.matchbook.com if you want a full recap of all the guys' picks here. And do check out the Matchbook Bet and Exchange. We invariably will be best price on the odds checker grid, given the nature of the exchange. But you now can do bet builders on Matchbook, which have proved quite popular with bettors over the last few months. But let's start. So we're trying to cover as many games as possible that are meaning a lot. So we're going to start with Villa versus Celtic, City versus Club Brugge, Barcelona, Atalanta, and Brest versus Real Madrid. So Villa are 157 favourites at Villa Park to Celtic are 6.2. The draw is 4.8. You can currently get both teams to score backable at 176 on Matchbook. The Asian handicap line will see Celtic get a 1-goal head start and 2.06, and the goal line for this game currently stands at 2.5. The overs is favoured at 165. So maybe, Adrian, take it with you. This is one of those novelty fixtures, I guess, in some ways. Villa versus Celtic. We get to see Villa place 8 different opponents. One of them is Celtic, this all British Isles clash included, and Irish clash as well. Take it away here and what you think how the game will go.
Yeah, they've had some good games, haven't they, at Villa Park with Bayern and Juve as well. So, yeah, it's been a good campaign, hasn't it, for both these clubs? And, yeah, it'll be an interesting night, won't it, at Villa Park? Be a crackling atmosphere. And, yeah, I like the fact that it's thrown this up. Villa kind of need it if they want to have any hopes of finishing in the top 8. They need to win this game. And you just said they're 1.57 favourites to do so. But we know that Celtic are capable of making it quite awkward, don't we? I mean, they went to Zagreb, albeit Zagreb aren't as strong as Villa. They went there and got a 0-0. They went to Atalanta, which was more impressive, and got the goalless draw as well. So they can go to difficult places now, Celtic, with a bit more confidence than they have done in the past, and be competitive and be solid. And I guess that's what they'll do here. I don't think Celtic will be bothered where they finish, really, in the league phase. So they've got a shot to nothing here in regards to they can just go out there and play. But again, would that take a little bit of an edge off? I think for Villa, there's an element of pressure because they were sat inside the top 8 for so long, and they don't really want to miss out on it. So I think it will feel like a big night for Villa. It could be a tense night for Villa because Celtic are competitive. We saw Rangers against Manchester United make a good fist of it, didn't we? So yeah, in terms of how I see this going, I'm not that impressed by Villa at the moment. I thought that they fought back well at Arsenal, but there were obvious issues defensively. They looked pretty jaded, didn't they? Again, obviously, it was a poor performance in Monaco. Pretty jaded in the second half against West Ham as well. Not great at all. So I don't think they're going to come out and thrash Celtic. No chance. But they might be able to grind it out. Their matches on home turf have been tight this season, haven't they? 1-0, they beat Bayern, 0-0 with Juve, and they beat Bologna 2-0. Haven't conceded at Villa Park in the Champions League. And I do think that Unai Emery is a bit of a master at navigating European fixtures, tactically excellent. We know that. So I think they've got enough to win the game, Aston Villa, because they need it more than Villa. There'll be a bit more edge on it for them. Need it more than Celtic. There'll be a bit more edge on it for them. And I think with Unai, even though they are not at their best, they should have enough to win what I would envisage to be quite a tight, competitive match. So I'm going to pair a Villa win with under 4.5 goals. Celtics have only won one once in the last 5 away games in all comps. So they're not flying away from home. They're underdogs for a reason here. I think Villa can win the game. Why under 4.5? Partly because it's that sort of Battle of Britain thing. I think that might lend itself to a tighter game. But also, Villa's last 15 home games in all competitions have been under 4.5 goals. We haven't seen a crazy game at Villa Park for quite some time. I think it was an Everton won 3-2 there. I think it's a long time ago. And look, as I said, since that 7-1 battering at Dortmund, Celtic have regrouped and been pretty solid on the road. So yeah, Villa and under 4.5, 1.57 turns into even money here, 2.0.
Okay, that's Villa to win under 4.5 goals, even money. And Mark, Adrian alluded to it there, those last 2 0-all draws on the road. Have we seen, and we probably have seen, that shift from Brendan Rodgers away in Europe?
Yeah. Although it's very small samples, and you look at the Atalanta game in particular, they were fortunate to get a 0-0 draw away in Bergamo. Like, they were battered for the most part of that match, and if they lose that game 2-0, we're probably not sort of answering that kind of question on Celtic away from home. So I have to say, when I looked at the Champions League, did my sort of own projections on Sunday, and then I looked where the market was at, I was surprised Villa were 157 or around that mark. I had them slightly shorter, but I also had Aston Villa to win and under 4.5 down as a potential option to take here. The reason I'm not going to take Villa to win the game, I'm going to play it a little bit more pragmatically. Just the fatigue element, and we look at the home record, which has been fantastic in the Champions League, not given up a goal yet, but they've given up 2.8 expected goals in those 3 fixtures against Bayern, Bologna and Juventus. The Bayern game in particular, 7 shots on target, 17 shots conceded, some pretty hairy moments in that 1-0 win. But Villa have lost just twice in 17 home games across all competitions this season, 9 wins in that sample, so pretty good. But they did look very leggy last week against Monaco. Same could be said on Sunday, where they flew out of the traps, and it looked like Villa could easily sort of sweep into a 2 or 3 goal lead in the first half. But second half, they were really jaded. They managed just 0.3 expected goals in that second half compared to 1.0 from West Ham. Unai Emery said after the game his team didn't look fresh, didn't look strong, weren't able to sort of dominate in that second half. And clearly injury news has gone against them as well, with Tyrone Mings back on the sidelines. Pau Torres is still out. I think he's a huge blow. And one of the weirdest moves in the transfer window so far, I thought, was Diego Carlos leaving the club without a replacement coming in so far. So Villa are really down to the bare bones. At centre-back, you had a back 4 of Luca Dean, Ian Martson, Konza and Cash playing in that second half against West Ham. Just that concerns me, as does the fact they've kept just 6 clean sheets and 33 across all competitions this season. And while they have looked quite tired and jaded in the last week or two, which is understandable, Celtic had the weekend off with the Dundee game postponed because of the storm. So they'll be well rested. Obviously beat Young Boys last midweek. That was the last time they were in action. The goal came late, but they thoroughly deserved it. Probably could have scored 3 or 4 others, had a few disallowed as well. It's now 1 defeat in 25 for Celtic. The issue I have with Celtic, though, is the sort of ongoing issue surrounding Kyogo. The star striker, whether that deal to Bren has gone through or not, it's not being officially confirmed. I'm wondering whether Celtic are trying to hold out a little bit longer to allow him to be available for this game and then let him move to Bren. But without him, I do think it sort of blunts their attack a little bit. But yeah, they've scored just 1 away goal at Dortmund, Atalanta and Dinamo so far. Just 10 shots in the box, only 5 shots on target in that same sample as well. And yeah, but perhaps against a patched up, tired Villa defence, they might have an opportunity. But yeah, so I found it quite a tricky game. So in the end, I've gone pragmatically and gone Aston Villa double chance over 0.5 goals. So Villa to avoid defeat, for there to be at least 1 goal in the game, and Villa to win the most corners, which is something they've done in every single home Premier League game so far this season. Celtic have conceded a minimum of 4 corners in all of their Champions League ties so far. Villa should be getting 4, 5, 6, 7 in this game, as they will be the aggressors. So combine those 3 elements together, and we're getting a 1.8 shot.
Okay, that's Villa double chance over 1 goal, over half a goal, that is, and Villa most corners 1.8. We'll lock in Villa under 4.5 goals, 2.0. That's Villa to get the win, that is, with Adrian at even money. Move on to Manchester City versus Club Brugge and take a look at the betting that we currently have on matchbook.com. Man City at 1.18 favourites here, and Club Brugge at 18.0. The draw is 9.2. Both teams to score currently sitting at 2.1, so it's the underdog in that market now is 187. The Asian handicap line sees Club Brugge get a 2.25 goal head start at 185, and the total for this game currently stands at 3.5. Overs is around even money. Adrian, we'll start with you again on this. I mean, Man City have had some week in terms of hammering Ipswich, getting a comeback from behind win against Chelsea, and obviously losing to PSG. You get excited for the former, you get excited for City being under threat, and then you look at those odds and think it's going to be a routine win, and a win obviously secures them top 24.
Yeah, we'll secure it because Stuttgart play PSG. So there's a little bit of luck there for Manchester City that the 2 teams that they can catch have to play each other. You see, if that wasn't occurring and everyone else won, it wouldn't matter what City did on the final day. So yeah, they've had a slice of fortune there, and I do expect them to make the most of it. I do. Club Brugge are a decent side. You know, they played pretty well at Celtic, actually. Good value for a 1-1 draw earlier in the season, and they've had some decent results, but it's a level above, isn't it? And I do feel that City will get the job done. They have scored in their last 14 away games in all competitions, Club Brugge. So you know, they might be worth a goal here. But yeah, I think that City have it within themselves to win with something to spare here. I'm trying to find a way to get onside with City. Obviously, you can't at the on the nose odds, that is for sure. I'm looking at them to score over 2.5 goals, to score 3 goals or more. They've done that in 11 of their last 13 Champions League home games. The only exceptions were the 0-0 draw with Inter and the 1-1 draw with Real Madrid, where they lost on penalties last season. All the other ones, you know, all the other clubs of Brugge's level or even higher have come to the Etihad Stadium and let in at least 3 goals. And I just don't see Club Brugge being able to hold out where those others failed. So I think City will score at least 3 goals. That on its own isn't enough, I'm afraid. So I'm looking at another way in, and I'm looking at the halftime, full-time market. So if you want to back City to be leading at halftime and to win the game, and for them to score 3 goals or more, then it comes out at better than even, so 2.05. They've led at halftime in 6 of their last 9 Champions League home games. I expect, because so much is at stake here for City, I expect full focus, a very, very strong starting 11, and I expect them to tear at Club Brugge very early on and to get them noses in front and to get a distance so that this is a no dramas evening. I don't see any other scenario really. If Brugge play brilliantly and hold them at halftime, fair play. But I think that's a less likely scenario. So yeah, I'm just backing City to do a professional job on the Belgians to be leading at halftime, to win the game and to score more than 2 goals. And that comes out at 2.05.
Okay, 2.05 on the bet builder. Mark, do you concur with Adrian there in terms of how the game's going to go and Manchester City potentially getting a fast start here?
Yeah, largely. I did think the handicap was a little bit steep for them to overcome 2.25 on the Asian line. I think it's slightly disrespectful to Club Brugge, who will come here with a threat. I know they're all but qualified. Quite a few permutations have to go against them for them to miss out, but they still will provide a threat. And once again, we saw at the weekend, Man City are not trustworthy from a defensive perspective. And I was really surprised to see Kuzanov named in the starting 11, even more so after the game when you hear he'd only trained once or twice with the team, doesn't speak much English either. Poor kid was, had a disastrous first sort of 5-10 minutes in that game. And City were pretty ropey for the most part until Chelsea sort of confusingly kind of stepped their foot off the gas and allowed them back into the game. So, yeah, he'll be missing this time around because he's ineligible. Marmoush, who was really inventive and exciting against Chelsea, he'll be ineligible as well. So kind of blunts them a little bit going forward. They've still got plenty of stars elsewhere. But defensively, John Stones will have to start here because Diaz and Ake are out. He's not completed 90 minutes in over 3 months. And whilst I do think he's obviously the standout performer in that defence of players available, I do think there's a rick in them from time to time. And we've seen that in the Premier League in the last 8 games. They've allowed 3 big chances or more in 6 of those 8 games, including against the likes of West Ham, Brentford and Leicester. Even at the Etihad, they're giving up about 1.3 expected goals per game in the Premier League this season. And only 8 sides have allowed fewer big chances at home. So Club Brugge do have a threat in forward areas. Hans Vanaken's been doing it for quite a few years now in terms of creating and converting. Gustav Nielsen was a big money signing from Union Saint-Gilloise. Has been scoring freely for them. Christos Zilos, a Greek guy who's a lively playmaker, set-piece merchant. He can provide the ammunition as well. So there's 3 threats already for a side who have scored in 30 of the last 32 across all competitions. Unbeaten in 20, winning 15 of those. And they've been quite competitive in games against Villa, Juve, Celtic and Sporting. The 3-0 against Dortmund on Matchday 1 defeat wasn't reflective either of the balance of play in that particular game either. So I think Club Brugge can score in this game. And, Final can score 3 here. And Club Brugge definitely can get a goal. FC Copenhagen, Red Star Belgrade, they both scored here last season in the Champions League. City were in much, much better shape in that time around too. So I don't know. I looked at City's Etihad record this season, just 5 clean sheets and 16 across all comps, one of which came against Salford. So, yeah, I do concur. I think City will make it through. It just feels inevitable that they will do. But I like the price jump from City at 118 to win, to Man City to win, and both teams to score at 280. I think Club Brugge can have a say in this game, even if they will probably ultimately lose the match.
Yeah, let's lock that in. It is a massive jump there. If you want Adrian's selection, that's City halftime, City full time, and City to score over 2.5 goals at 2.05. But we'll lock in City to win and both teams to score at the big price jump, as I mentioned, 2.8, and move on to Barcelona versus Atalanta. Will these 2 teams be thereabouts towards the end of the Champions League campaign? We'll see. Barcelona 177 favourites to Atalanta 4.6 with the draw at 7-2 or 4.5 on Matchbook. Both teams to score, yes, 1.43. So the market expecting goals. The Asian handicap line sees Atalanta get a 3/4 goal head start at around even money, and the goal line for this one currently sitting at 3.5, and overs is favoured there too at 194. So, Mark, I mean, Barcelona probably the most exciting team to watch in Europe now, right up there, and maybe just behind Tottenham Hotspur for different reasons, maybe. But Barcelona, they're just attack, goals at both ends.
Yeah, their attack is on steroids, and defensively they're an absolute mess at times. So they're good fun to follow. Anyone who tuned into that 5-4 game against Benfica will testify. But it's not just that match either. The Super Cup final against Real Madrid, 5-2. Betis recently were thrashed. Valencia were demolished 7-1 at the weekend. So they've now scored 5 goals or more in 4 of their last 5 games, which is astonishing, really, when you look at the caliber of opposition. Madrid, Betis, Benfica and Valencia. Valencia might be bottom of the La Liga, but Carlos Carvajal definitely knows how to organise a defence. So to see them get absolutely hammered by a weakened Barca as well, because they have, despite sort of being guaranteed top 8, I don't think they're likely to finish below the top 4 based on the projections and permutations. They want to finish top 2, obviously, but they didn't have to sort of take this game that seriously, but they did. They rested Pau Kabasi, Casado, Gavi, Robert Lewandowski. Pedri had diarrhea, so he had to miss out, but he might be back for this match. But I expect the cavalry to come back, and they're playing Atalanta side who simply must win for a sort of top 8 finish, really. And I think that sets this game up quite nicely. As I say, Barca, so good in forward areas, Lewandowski, Rafinha, Lamine Yamal, in particular, those three. But defensively, just 2 clean sheets in the last 17 against teams who aren't sort of from a lower league in the Copa del Rey. So Szczesny's been between the sticks in the last 2 games, has made big errors in both, so he might rotate out for this one. But I looked at La Liga actually, and 8 clubs have allowed fewer big chances than Barcelona this season. They've also allowed 18 big chances in 7 Champions League matches so far. So I think there's more than enough encouragement for Atalanta to come here, play their own sort of style of expressive attacking football, and hurt Barcelona. They got back into their groove last week with that thrashing of Sturm Graz, won the derby against Como at the weekend. Gasperini was pretty positive about both performances. They've got attacking ability in Retegui, Lukman, and De Ketelaere having great seasons, the 3 of them. They're actually, I think, the top team for expected goals output this season in the Champions League too. And they've, since the Matchday 1 game against Arsenal, they've generated at least 2.25 expected goals in every Champions League game, including 2.5 XG when they lost 3-2 to Real Madrid in a thriller in Bergamo. They gave up 7 big chances in that match, actually. And I think the flow of this game might sort of follow that, actually, because Barca will obviously have a right good go to score a few themselves, but defensively, I do think they are vulnerable. So, I think just to sort of follow on from what I said about Man City, really, I'm going to back Barcelona to win and both teams to score. That's 282. That's a really nice price considering. And man of the moment at the minute is Rafinha, who's sort of started the season incredibly, went a little bit quiet over the sort of festive period, but he's bounced back into form. 5 goals in his last 4 games. He's scored in 11 of his last 18 matches. He's averaging he's averaging 0.89 goals per 90 at home, 0.8 goals per 90 home or away this season. He's 2.4 to score. So if you expect Barca to score 2 or 3, as they might well do, I expect him to be very much amongst it as well. So 2.4 on him to score.
Okay, 2.4 for Rafinha to score and Barcelona to win and both teams to score is 282. The 2 selections from Mark. Adrian, hard to disagree with that. There's going to be goals in this game.
Yeah, I think this is the one to watch, really. If you've got the old split screen option, I'd definitely get this one up because, Atalanta really, they will feel ahead of the game that they need to win. And it's not going to be easy for them to win at the Nou Camp, but they are a very confident away side. And I think the way that they set up tactically does make them well suited to matches on the road. They've won 9, drawn 2, and lost 1 away from home in all competitions across that period of 12 matches. Losing 1 in 12, winning 9 of them. That shows that they won't be afraid of the challenge, no doubt about that. But as we've outlined, Barcelona are quite potent. All those goals lately, it's crazy. But look, just 2 clean sheets in their last 10 at home in all competitions, Barcelona. So Mark's shout of both teams to score looks really strong. Atalanta on the road in this competition. Maybe they've had an easy ride. I mean, they beat Shakhtar, Stuttgart, and Young Boys, but they did win all of those by at least a couple of goals. So I think that they'll go there with belief, but whether they're good enough to pull it off a win, I don't know. What I'm really confident about is the both teams to score angle. I think that one feels really, really strong. And I like over 2.5 goals. So if you couple that up, both teams scoring over 2.5 goals, that gets you part of the way there. And then I'm going to do a reverse on Mark this time. He went more pragmatic on the last game. I'm flipping it around here and saying it could be a score draw. This could be a 2 apiece kind of game. Barcelona double chance. Both teams to score an over 2.5 goals comes out at 2.0. So that's just playing it super safe, really. But I think Barcelona are bound to score to score a couple of goals here. It's just what can Atalanta bring, and I think they've shown in the Europa League last year and in this season's Champions League that they're a top team themselves, and with lots of incentive to go for goals. This should be an absolute belter.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to lean and get Adrian with the safer option, Barcelona double chance. I do like Atalanta, but that's including both teams are scoring over 2.5 goals. So back in the goals angle, even money, you can, of course, back mark selections and see them on Matchbook Insights after the show. Final game we picked was Brest versus Real Madrid. Just include Madrid here, who have a smallish chance of qualifying into that top 8. They're 142 favourites away to Brest, who are 8.4 at home, and the draw is 9-2 or 5.5 on Matchbook. Both teams to score, yes, is 175. The Asian handicap line, Brest are going to get a 1.25 goal head start, and you can back that at 2.08, and 3.5 is the total here with 172 for the under and favourite in that market. So Mark, set this game up for us again. Looking at the table, a very outside chance for Madrid. They are only 1 point off the top 8, but it's just the amount of teams they have to get an over. But there might be a time throughout the night where they are in that top 8 for a brief period.
Yeah, maybe. I think the odds are kind of stacked against them with the permutations and projections really for that top 8 finish. But they'll go here expecting to win, wanting to win against the Brest side who have surprised this season. They're almost certainly going to miss out on the top 8 themselves, actually. They'd require, I think, 5 of the 8 clubs above them to draw or lose, as well as a result themselves. So, but still, it's quite a historic occasion for them, obviously, playing Real Madrid. I was going to say hosting Real Madrid. Not necessarily, because this game is taking place in Guingamp, which is about 100 miles away. Brest's stadium is not up to UEFA standards for Champions League football, so they played all their home matches away, or a neutral venue, if you like, in Guingamp, which makes their campaign even more remarkable, really. They've taken 7 points off PSV, Leverkusen and Sturm Graz at home. They're also in decent form across all comps, 8 wins in the last 11. They were beaten by Shakhtar last time out and gave up 4 big chances in that match, but yeah, I wonder whether they might have been found out a little bit after that sort of early start where a lot of their good results came against the lesser teams in the Champions League, because they play quite reactive, counter-attacking football. Ludovic Ajorc is the sort of towering front man who leads the line. Nice little playmaker as much as a finisher himself. But yeah, they're not the most expansive of sides. And yeah, perhaps earlier in the competition, they might have bloodied a few noses by teams who didn't quite know what to expect. But Real Madrid, they've already had their shock in France this season. They lost 1-0 in Lille. Again, they probably didn't deserve to lose. They had 5 big chances, an XG over 2.0, but still failed to score. They also failed to score in defeat at Liverpool back in November before winning that thriller at Atalanta. So they've been a bit topsy-turvy on their travels, but more recently they've started to find their groove. Bar that thrashing by Barca in the Super Cup, it's 11 wins from 12 outside of that, scoring freely. You look at the side, pretty formidable in forward areas with Ceballos and Valverde sort of holding that middle pivot together. And then you've got Rodrigo, Vinicius, Mbappe, and then Bellingham just behind. So, no sort of issues about them going forward. But defensively, Militao and Carvajal out long term. Lucas Vazquez hasn't impressed at right back. So Raul Asensio has moved across from centre back to right back. Quite an impressive youngster. Means they've had Tchouameni at centre half with Rudiger for a lot of the sort of more recent matches. So they are gettable from a defensive perspective. But going forward, can Brest stop a team who have scored 2 goals or more in each of the last 13, 3 goals or more in 10 of those 13? They've scored 3 goals or more in 5 of the last 6 away. They're also ranked 3rd across the Champions League for XG generated across those first 7 match days, despite what's been quite a tough schedule, actually. Stuttgart, Lille, Dortmund, Milan, Liverpool, Atalanta, Salzburg. So, fair play to Real Madrid. Ultimately, I think they win this game. I think they score at least twice, probably 3. And therefore, I'm going to back Real Madrid to win and over 2.5 goals at 183, because they can cover that line themselves if they wanted to. But, ultimately, they might also concede. If you look at Brest's results against Ligue 1's elite, lost 5-1 at home to Marseille, lost 3-1 at PSG, lost 3-2 at Monaco, lost 3-1 at Lille. So the step up in class, I think they might fall short. So, Real Madrid to win and over 2.5 goals.
Okay, yeah, Adrian, hard to argue with any of that. The Madrid are strong favourites here, and we expect them to probably take care of business.
Oh yeah. I don't expect them to mess this one up. I'm just going to flip it around and offer the alternative, which would be probably going under 4.5 goals. Those stats that Mark read out at the end would probably put you off of doing that, up against the top end sides in Ligue 1. But when I look at the group games so far for Brest in the Champions League, all 7 have gone under 4.5 goals, and they've by and large defended really stoutly. They're a low possession team. They're going to be quite direct and look for set piece opportunities, be aggressive, try and hurt on the counter. But I think they're going to be one of those opponents that try to be stubborn. I don't think they're going to try and slug it out with Real Madrid. And we've all watched those games, and they can be a bit of a grind, can't they? Even when you've got, the likes of Mbappe and Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr. and Bellingham all in really good form. That's why you have to back Real Madrid. This Real Madrid side are clicking now in forward areas, aren't they? Scored 19 in their last 6 away games. But yeah, I'm just looking at this and thinking, are Brest really going to cause that many problems to Real Madrid? Are they even going to score in the game? And if you don't think they're going to score, then that means Real Madrid would have to get 5 for this bet to lose. I don't think they'll get 5. Even if Brest get 1, you've still got to get 4, Real Madrid, for the bet to lose. I think they've shown enough over the course of the group stage that they can handle these kind of matches. They seem to bring their best form for these games in Europe. And as Mark said, they're in decent form. They've won 5 in a row at home in all competitions. But yeah, I like the way they kept things tight. Look, the opposition isn't great. PSV, they won narrowly at home. Graz, they won narrowly at home. And then they drew 1-1 with Leverkusen. Now, that's a really good guide. If you can hold Leverkusen 1 apiece, Leverkusen probably have the firepower of Real Madrid, but they're still a top team. So yeah, I just think this one might be a bit of a grind for Real Madrid, but I do expect them to get the job done. So my pick would be 1.97 Real Madrid and under 4.5 goals.
Okay, that's 197. As Adrian said, we'll go with Mark and over 2.5 goals just in case this escalates at 183. But both bets can, of course, win. And check the rest of the bets on insight.matchbook.com. We move on to any other bets, Mark, and the worst domestic unbeaten run of all time finally ended on Saturday night. Were you watching Juventus losing 2-1? Because the whole world was shocked, really, that this unbeaten run, the Invincibles were finally beat.
I wasn't shocked. They've been sort of bumbling across their campaign for the most part.
Yeah.
It's quite unbelievable they've reached this stage unbeaten. The decisive goal, a penalty from Romelu Lukaku in Naples. But just going to go back to the beginning of the podcast. UEFA told us that every game matters in this new format, and that's clearly not the case going into Matchday 8 when 9 teams have already been eliminated. At least 2 are guaranteed to be top 8. If you look at the supercomputers, the projections, the permutations, it basically says that there are 7 teams with at least a 73% chance or better of finishing the top 8. When you look at sort of the standings, the goal difference, the opposition, of course, anything can happen in football, but I still think that's quite a high percentage. And I was basically trying to figure out what is basically pinpoint the matches where there's not a huge amount riding on them. And Juventus versus Benfica did stand out in that sense. Juventus are pretty much all but certain to finish in the playoffs. There's a 99% chance that they do. 1% chance of finishing in the top 8 because they would require at least 9 clubs between 5th and 16th not to win to finish in the top 8. So it's not happening. And they're playing a Benfica side who a draw would all but guarantee them a playoff place. There's an 84% chance, according to the projections, they finish in the top 24. City play Brugge, Dinamo Zagreb host Milan, Shakhtar go to Dortmund. There's loads of other permutations, but basically they require 4 of the 5 clubs immediately below them to win or draw for them not to qualify. So I've basically gone around the houses here and saying this match might not be as interesting or as exciting because I think a draw kind of just does what's necessary for both teams here, really. There's bigger issues elsewhere. And Thiago Motta's team, anyhow, are the draw specialists in Europe. 16 draws in 31 across all competitions this season, just to 3 defeats. They're playing a Benfica side who are under pressure. They've lost 2 of the last 3 domestic matches. Bruno Lage, the manager there, getting loads of heat from the supporters at the weekend. I expect him to go to Turin and try and park the bus and play for a point, which would guarantee that top 24 position, regardless of what happens elsewhere. And just thought the draw looked like a nice price at 335, considering where the 2 clubs are at. And just as a quick comparison, there's been a lot sort of made of the PSG Stuttgart game where a draw is kind of mutually beneficial for both teams in their sort of quest to qualify, really. And I can tell you now, Stuttgart will not allow that to happen, or their fans will not expect their team to go and just play for a point. They'll want to kind of give it a good shot, and PSG obviously too shouldn't really kind of going into pragmatic mode. But the draw in that game is trading at 268. It's 335 here, so I think that's quite a decent difference, and so I think it's worth cheering on. Weird one to cheer on, isn't it? The draw, but yeah, 335.
Mhm.
It's just you don't know what you're cheering for. Really, that's the whole point. We've talked about this before. We've gone through this one. You know, but I think you found the less noise draw potentially that suits both teams, or they'll probably play for here. And Adrian, Salzburg already out. Atletico pretty much guarantees to be through, and they just need to take care of business. Probably a point would make sure, but they're going to go out gun ho for three points here, and it's just a new Atletico, particularly domestically this season.
Yeah, I like Atletico's chances of running up a little bit of a score against Salzburg. They're 1.37 shots Atletico to win the game, so they're heavily backed here to win in Salzburg. If you pair it with over 2.5 goals, it jumps to 1.96. Which is much more appealing, especially when you consider every Champions League match involving Atletico Madrid this season has gone over 2.5 goals. That's 7 games in a row, where we've seen plenty, seeing the ball hit the back of the net plenty of times. Away from home in this competition, 6 of their last 7 games have gone over 2.5 goals as well. So the days of them sort of being involved in 1-0 all the time feel like quite a long time ago now. They've got good goal scorers in really good form as well. Obviously, Alvarez and Griezmann and co. They're enjoying themselves, and I think they should enjoy themselves in Austria against the Salzburg team that are having a stinker of a season. 5th domestically, won 7 of their 16 league games, and they're leaking a lot of goals, not just in the Champions League but also in their own division. They're out. So they've got nothing to play for. They've let in 23 goals in 7 games. In fairness, they've had a tough run. They let in 11 against Leverkusen, PSG, and Real Madrid, but they're three really hard games, aren't they? And it didn't get any easier with the Atletico on the last day. So yeah, you just wonder how bothered will Salzburg be. Atletico want to cement a place in the top 4, I would imagine. They won't want to go, finish this with a whimper. So yeah, I can see them cruising to a nice, handsome win in this fixture. So I'm going to back Atletico and over 2.5 goals at 1.96.
196 there for Adrian. On to long shots time, and Bayern can be backed as low as 101 in the sports books. If you want the value, Matchbook 103. You can back that right now if that's your thing. But Mark, that's
massive
probably
value.
massive value as always on Matchbook, Mark. But the point is the uncompetitive nature of a lot of games, given the golfing class between the top and the European competitions and the ones that just about making the Champions League. So it helps your case. But we can make money from those uncompetitive games. Tell the viewers some of the markets you target and then lead into your long shot here.
Yeah, well, in this instance, I'm going to be opposing cards in the game, which I'll get to. Bayern were surprisingly beaten by Feyenoord last week. If you look at the data for that game, stunning how they managed to lose that game 3-0. They had 22 shots in the box compared to 5 from Feyenoord. They created 9 big chances and they didn't score, and they still managed to concede 3 goals. But yeah, as you say, they're super strong favourites here against Slovan Bratislava. I think we all expect them to win. As the Asian handicap is set around minus 4.0. They already put 9 past Dinamo Zagreb on Matchday 1. Wouldn't be at all surprising to see them rack up at least 5 goals in this game. They don't really need to hammer the goal difference, really, but yeah, Slovan are the worst team in the competition. They've conceded 3 goals or more in 6 of their 7 defeats, allowed 18 shots per game, 39 big chances. Bayern are actually top of the competition for that metric, 32 created. So it should be a cakewalk. And in these sorts of scenarios where a team is such strong favourites, bookings do tend to decrease, which kind of makes sense, right? Competitive games between similarly strength sides tend to produce cards, lopsided betting heats, and one-sided matches don't, or at least lower than the sort of averages. So that's the angle I'm going to take here. Opposed cards in Munich, we can get 7.0 on under 9.5 booking points. We're effectively saying there'll be no cards in this game. There was just 1 in Bayern's 9-2 win against Dinamo. There were 0 cards has landed 3 times, only 3 times so far in the Champions League group stage. But interestingly, 2 of those 3 0-card games came in Slovan Bratislava matches against Man City and Atletico when they were totally outplayed in both. Interestingly too, 12 other matches featured a maximum of 1 card. They include that 9-2 Bayern Dinamo game. Of the other 11 instances where exactly 1 card was produced, 4 came in a match that involved a team winning by 3 goals or more, and 3 more came in 0-0 draws. So I think there's a clear trend that says, along with the sort of historic narrative that one-sided contests breed low card counts, but also games where there's little goals or little action also are likely to produce very low card counts. So we're definitely in the former here. This should be a rout, and therefore I'm expecting a low card count. The only concern is the referee, which is João Pinheiro, Portuguese, not the best appointment. Portuguese tend to be quite card happy, as their league tends to be. But he did drop a 0-card game in the Europa League last December 2023, West Ham against Freiburg. He also gave just 2 cards in Sporting versus Benfica this month in a cup game, which is almost unheard of. Like 2 cards in that derby, huge rarity. So I'm hoping he won't, or at least forget his cards, leave them in the changing room and distribute 0, and we'll get a nice 6-1 winner.
Yeah, the Asian handicap market is 4.25 goals, so I'll be interested in full month to see if that gets covered or not throughout the game. But under 9.5 booking points, you can back.
Would you want to lay it?
No,
I wouldn't want to lay
it out, but it'll end up 4 or 5, won't it? They're usually very accurate markets, but yeah, fun one to watch there. Under 9.5 booking points, Bayern versus Bratislava. Pretend watch another game and then just check the score full time and see if there were no cards. Basically, Adrian. This is interesting now. Lille versus Feyenoord. You're expecting goals, to say the least.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a little fun one. I too was looking for games that where something might matter or not matter, and this one kind of leapt off the page mainly because of Feyenoord. Feyenoord have been the great entertainers of the league phase. I'll read you out some numbers: 4, 5, 4, 4, 6. 6, 3. That's the amount of goals in Feyenoord matches during the league phase so far. So 3 times we've seen 5 goals or more scored in Feyenoord matches. Yeah, they've been fun. Scoring loads, letting in plenty. So I wanted to look at a goals angle, and with them playing Lille, it kind of made sense because the last 5 Champions League games for Lille have featured 17 goals themselves, so over 3. Both teams' scorers landed in them all. So Lille are scoring goals. Lille are struggling at the other end to keep them out. Lille at home in all comps, 8 of the last 9 have gone both teams to score. And their last home game in the Champions League, they beat Sturm Graz 3-2. And that's the kind of result I'm looking at here. Probably a 3-2er either way. Now, why would I think it's going to finish 3-2? Well, a win gives them a chance of top 8. It really does. Not guaranteed it, of course, but if Atalanta were to slip up or the other team that's just below them, then a win for either of these two could leapfrog them into the top 8. And that's quite the incentive, I think. So I'm predicting a shootout between Lille and Feyenoord. Now, as I've just outlined, Feyenoord love a shootout anyway. They've just been a little bit gung-ho throughout this campaign. So, yeah, I just thought it'd be a nice fun one. If you want to cheer on goals, Lille Feyenoord might be the one. Now, you can obviously just cheer on over 3.5 or something like that, or even over 2.5 if you want to play it safe. But for long shot territory, you want to push the boat out. So over 4.5 goals, that's a 5-goal thriller, comes in at 6.4, which is quite fun. So, yeah, really, I'm not expecting a 4-1er. Either way, although that could happen, but I do think a 3-2er could be on the cards because a win would propel both the winner potentially into that top 8, which would be a great achievement for either.
Absolutely. So that's over 4.5 goals. Currently on Matchbook 6.4. The sports books have that around 5.5. So eke out a bit of that value during the week on the Matchbook betting exchange, and that's the long shots done. And best bets, and Mark, you'll just bring your long shots back a step, I guess, and you're looking at that Bayern game once again.
Yeah, I just feel these card prices are too good to be ignored. So it's 2.05 on Bayern not to be carded. So Bayern under 9.5 booking points It's 2.3 if you include Bayern to win the game by 2 goals or more. So 6 of 7 Slovan defeats have been by at least 2 goals. 3 of those losses by at least 3 goals. Bayern have cleared this handicap in 7 of 9 at home in the Bundesliga. They've also won all 3 games against Dinamo, PSG, and Benfica in this competition. So they should really win this game by at least 4 goals, let alone 2. But in terms of the cards, they've received a maximum of 1 card in 9 of their 12 home League and Champions League games this season. The 3 that they didn't, PSG, Leipzig, and Wolfsburg, well, they hit at least 2 cards. And that's obviously because the opposition have been much more competitive than they have or will be this midweek. So you can see it, can't you? Bayern are just going to dominate possession, territory, control, rack up 3, 4, 5 goals, and just play in first gear without too much stress. So yeah, Bayern to win by at least 2 and Bayern not to be carded at 2.3.
Okay, best bet on the card. Love it, Adrian. You're liking that.
I was just thinking about all the goals that they're probably going to score. Will someone take their shirt off? But you wouldn't take your shirt off in a 5-6-0 rout, would you? That'd just be a little bit embarrassing.
Better bloody not.
Best bet time, Adrian. For you now, you're keeping it a little bit more simple than we're going with the win market and the both teams to score now, where we get those inflated prizes if you feel the team can keep a clean sheet.
Yeah, people don't like both teams to score win to nil because it's over in a flash.
Could be gone with that. Yeah,
and concede. So yeah, I get it, but you do get better prices because of it. And last week, my best bet was Inter Milan to beat Sparta Prague away to 0, and they did it. They obliged, and I think that Bayer Leverkusen can repeat the trick at home to Sparta Prague this time around. They are 1.14 shots, so not quite Bayern territory, but they're getting there. 1.14 to win, but you can get 1.84 if you're brave enough to back them to win to 0. And I'm up for it because Leverkusen, they yet to concede at home in the Champions League this season. They've been really, really good in terms of keeping teams at bay. A win for them guarantees top 8 as well. So I don't expect a full focus, a strong starting 11 from Xabi Alonso. They won't mess around here. And Sparta Prague are already out. Looking at their last 10 home games in all comps, they have had 6 clean sheets. They're not known for it. I get that, but they've had 6 clean sheets in 10. And since the start of September, they've won 12 at home, drawn 2, and no losses at all. Sparta were battered 5-0 at City, and they also blanked versus Atletico and Inter at home. So when they go up against the teams that are, the real deal at this level, Sparta Prague struggle to score. So yeah, I think Leverkusen can win this 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. I think that's what I would expect. So it's my best bet at 1.84.
Okay, yeah, and the guys are on a great run of best bets, 4 out of 4 between the weekend and last week. So that's over the last week. So pay heed to what they're saying there. Insights.matchday.com if you want a full recap of the guys' picks. We will be back on Friday morning, a little bit later in the week, to preview this weekend's Premier League action. If you are watching the Champions League during the week, and that is Wednesday night, and having a bet, enjoy. Make sure it enhances that enjoyment, but please do so responsibly. And all going well, we will chat to you guys on Friday. Bye-bye.